Hi everyone! It has been a really long time since I posted anything or even logged into this YouTube channel, The Barrio Cottage. I wanted to log back in and let you know where I've been and where you can find me now if you'd still like to follow along with me on my adventures in the garden. As you know, we lived in a very small house in Tucson with a very tiny yard, which made it necessary to use raised beds. I used stock tanks in this little garden and it worked really well. However, about a year and a half ago, I moved to a house that had a much bigger yard with lots more space for growing. Instead of just my small stock tank garden, I now have room for a large in-ground garden and my stock tank garden and a small patio garden of sorts. Since I've been at this house for a year and a half, I've had plenty of time to set up the garden, and I have some videos on that if you would like to see what the process was like. The first thing that I did was take my stock tanks. Yes, I packed my stock tanks and took them with me, which required me to remove all of the dirt and move them in a moving van to my new house. But that is the obsession of a gardener. And I'm approaching this yard as a workshop for myself. I still want to experiment with raised beds because I think that's a really important thing for a lot of people to be able to garden at all. Either they have poor soil or a small space or maybe some physical limitations, whatever it may be. I think that raised bed gardens are still a really important part of gardening, and I want to keep experimenting with that. I've been experimenting with different varieties of very compact small plants that do well in containers or in very small patio flower bed type gardens. I've got quite a few varieties that really stood out as winners this year that performed really well either in containers, in my stock tanks, or in the small strip of soil that I have along my back patio. So even if you don't have enough room for a raised bed, maybe you have some room for containers or for just a small flower bed that goes along your patio. And then the third aspect of my little garden workshop is having an in-ground garden. And I've been experimenting with different ways to utilize the space as efficiently as possible so that I can grow as much as I can, and also to utilize water as efficiently as I can. What I came up with is a hybrid method between a basin bed garden used by the indigenous people in the southwestern region and the raised bed garden used by Mel Bartholomew. So I combined those two and I ended up with 12 4x4 squares that I actually dug down into the ground so they're slightly sunken or recessed. I also put in a long basin bed that I used to grow pole beans, so I have a trellis down the middle. I think that it's really important as gardeners that we realize before we hand out advice that many people are gardening in many different types of circumstances. And so just because now I have a big yard does not mean that I want to abandon researching and experimenting with all sorts of other alternative gardening methods, because I want to help people. I want to help you garden. And if I'm going to help you garden, then I need to understand what kinds of challenges you're dealing with, and I need to be able to find solutions to give to you to help you be successful in your own garden. I spent a lot of years in apartments with nothing but a balcony or houses that had almost no yard. And sometimes I lived in houses that did have a yard, but I just didn't have enough money to be able to put a garden in. So I'm not forgetting about those challenges in those days and how badly I wanted to garden. Because of that, I am treating my backyard, as big as it is now, as my workshop with different zones. I have my raised bed garden made up of my stock tanks, I have my in-ground garden, and I have my patio garden that has a very small flower bed that runs along two sides of it. If you're interested in following along with these other adventures, you can head on over to my other channel. It's called The Little Mission Garden. I'll link that in the description box below. And I would be so happy if you came to follow me along on my journey in this new phase. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.